I'm Big T, and today we're going to be talking about a parkour free running video game that kind of helped change the landscape of how we see some video games today. So if you really want to stick around and hear about Mirror's Edge, parkour platforming and free running, you can stick around. I'm Big T, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's get into it.
Did you just do what I think you did? God damn it, girl, I just spilled my Joe all over the keyboard.
Did that look cool? Oh fuck, I didn't mean to drop those. So as you could probably guess, Mirror's Edge is a game about parkour and free running. You traverse through all of these levels mainly by sprinting, wall running, climbing, jumping, crouching, breaking your fall with some rolls, etc, etc, with a little occasional shooting sprinkled in there. It made for a pretty unique package. I guess you could say at the time EA was putting the EA in creative. That was really stupid. I just wanted to put it in this video. It was really DICE that made Mirror's Edge, but whatever. There's three elements that really make up Mirror's Edge, and that's the art style, the gameplay, and the story. First off, talking about the art style, it's super creative. All of the lighting and visual elements you see in this game are, for the most part, really intentionally made. When you're climbing around on the rooftops, usually the buildings and everything around you is white and the point of interest are red, at least in the introduction and the beginning of the game. And then when you start to get into buildings' interiors, you're just blasted with a solid color theme, but still whenever there's a specific door you need to bust down or something, it'll be bright red so you know exactly where to go. They call this runner's vision. You could also turn it off in the settings, but kind of defeats the purpose. You're usually a shadow in the background of this running, bustling city. Very lightly are you ever on the actual city floor. You're usually up on rooftops or going in between buildings. You usually keep yourself fairly low-key, or at least that's what you're made to believe in the introduction of the game, before they just start throwing consistent chopper gunner sequences at you where people are constantly trying to kill you, but we'll get into that in a minute. Moving on to the game mechanics. Most of it is free running and most of it is pretty good. Like I said, this was the main focus of the game and it was very unique for the time. Even today, people really haven't done much to try to replicate this game in a way. The majority of your gameplay is spent running through the levels, literally, which in itself usually wouldn't be fun in a normal game. You would usually need a bunch of other things to spice it up, but when the gameplay is this smooth, or at least as smooth as it was for the time, that's the main draw. It's kind of like surfing in CSGO. There's just a certain finesse you get when you're trying to get a perfect run through a certain level, and when you can smoothly go over all of these obstacles without screwing up, it just feels so satisfying. That being said, I feel like I got a lot of cheap deaths where the game just didn't register when I wanted to actually grab onto something. You know, it wasn't ever too much of a big deal, not enough for me to get too frustrated with the game, but I guess it just comes with the time. But it was something that I had an issue with here and there. Another element to the gameplay is the shooting. This happens very rarely. Usually when you're around guards, you get the option to either try to fight them or run, except for when there's like 4 sequences where you have to fight them, which isn't really fun. The game isn't really made for combat. Whenever you got to get into a fist fight, especially this fist fight where there's a boss battle that you're constantly supposed to be fighting, it just doesn't feel good. The shooting it's okay. The game wasn't really meant for it. The only time you ever get a gun is when you knock a guard down and take theirs, so you get one magazine, and once that's out, you just throw the whole gun away. With this being such a light focus, it really kind of sucks whenever they force combat on you, and if they weren't forcing it, it sure as hell felt like they did. Like in this one level, there's this office building where you get crowded by people, and they're so aggressive that there's really no way around them other than to kill them. There's also times where they just put explosive barrels everywhere for no reason. Like on top of this office building, oh, here's an explosive barrel, that makes sense. I got quite a few cheap deaths in this game and I'm just not happy about it. It's all good though, because when you get back to the running, life is good until you get stopped by something. There's this one level where I swear you turn these sewer drain things like at least 20 times. Completely halts the pace of the gameplay. Not fun. Also, there's parts of this game that kind of feel like padding, and I say that because the game is at its best in the earlier sections, where you're just able to smoothly run through these levels and you clearly kind of know where you're going. And then they start putting you in the interiors of these buildings where things start to get a little confusing to navigate through, and that just wasn't super fun to me. By and large, I didn't have a bad time with the gameplay itself. What I did have a bad time with, and I didn't realize that it was this bad until I went back to it because it's been almost 10 years. I can't believe this game came out that long ago. One more point about the graphics. This looks really good for 2009. This just shows you how good you can get when you have a deliberate art style going into a game other than just pumping as much graphical tech in it that you can. Everything still holds up pretty nice. But yeah, about that story. It sucks. You're not going to be playing this game for the story. You play as this strong lead character, Faith, and that's really the only character I care about. All the other ones really fall flat. Whenever there's supposed to be this memorable scene where you get into a fight with a certain person, or somebody dies, or there's an extreme plot twist, it's usually really basic and kind of generic. You kind of see all of these plot twists coming from a mile away. And there's a lot of holes in the story. I could just make a whole video on the plot holes in this thing. I don't really ever like to get into detail about this kind of stuff, but man, it's really painful. So you start off with the game finding that your sister's been framed for a murder. Okay, and the game sets it up to where you're supposed to be in the background of everything going on throughout the city. But the game pretty much starts you off with being chased by guards and attack helicopters. Like really, the attack helicopter thing is done like 3-4 times, and at that point you just took all of the punch out of it. It's not fun. Also, it's kind of a bit of a conflict of interest when your sister's a cop, but yet you get all these people trying to murder you for lifting a piece of paper from a crime scene. Also, there's a part where you gotta break out your sister from a convoy taking her to prison because she's been convicted for a murder. Even though the police chief knows her on a personal level, it doesn't really seem like he's ever putting in any effort to clear her name. You also don't find out that all of these police officers, or what they seem to be like police officers, are actually just guards until really late in the game, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me either. They don't really explain a whole lot. It's very vague. And I feel like the vagueness was kind of put in for the lack of story elements in the game. The game kind of leads you on this breadcrumb trail of, oh, this is the guy responsible. Just kidding, he's not the guy responsible. Oh wait, maybe he is, but oh no, he just died. Actually, he wasn't responsible. It just kind of leads you on, and like I said, every plot twist is pretty generic and obvious. The story took me about 4.5 hours to complete, and that's including all of the times I felt like the padding was having me put in a lot of trial and error, a lot of deaths. If you were running through these levels and you knew what you were doing, you could definitely cut this in under 4 hours. Also, minor spoiler here. If you don't want a minor spoiler, go play Mirror's Edge, the 11-year-old game, and then come back to this video. Who cares, dude? There's the scene where you're jumping out of this helicopter that's going down, and you fall back onto this rooftop that had like 4 guards shooting at you on it, and then you're at the end of the game, at the ending scene on this skyscraper, and the guards that were just shooting at you are just mysteriously gone. I kind of tried to be a little bit vague there to not spoil the entire ending element of the game, but yeah, it was kind of just like, really? That was really lazy. The ending wasn't really satisfying. Your sister's still a wanted fugitive for no real reason, and that's never solved. I haven't really gotten into the second game, but I don't feel like the second game is a really direct sequel. I don't know. It's been a long time. I played like an hour of it like a couple of years ago. Maybe I'll get back into that. I would say it's worth a few hours of your time. Seeing as you can get it fairly cheap, like I got this for like $2 or $3 on sale, it's definitely worth that if you just want to explore your curiosity, but don't go in there looking for a good story because the story fucking sucks. Look, dude, I'm sorry if you really like the Mirror's Edge story, I just didn't get into it. But yeah, that's Mirror's Edge. I think I pretty much covered everything I want to talk about, and if you enjoyed this, check out my Splinter Cell video. Go give that some more views. That was a pretty good video that nobody watched, but anyways, see you on the next one. Patreon if you want to support it. Check out my other videos. Later.